I'm Blair Gilbert of Gilbert's Pro Hardware and MrHardware.com, here to do a little dissertation about doorbell buttons, and doorbell repair. How easy it is to maintain them and keep them running. Quite often, those of us that have older homes have wired-in doorbells. The wired-in doorbell is going to consist of a doorbell button, wire that's going to go to a transformer in some location in your house, and then the wiring is going to go from the transformer where the power is up the wall to the main floor of your house to your doorbell. Very simple installation. It's two separate switch legs when you have two doorbell buttons. So you notice that your doorbell doesn't work and one button is out. That is a pretty easy solution, because almost always the doorbell buttons, being out in the weather due to rain and corrosion, they get corroded and don't make good contact. So what you do, and fortunately doorbell systems are all low voltage, so you can disconnect the doorbell. You can take your two wires and you can touch them for starters. You can touch them together and you can ring your doorbell without a doorbell button. So if that happens, easy solution is get a new button. As long as your doorbell chime is not electronic or fancy, you can get a lighted button or a non-lighted button. Now, when you take and check it and you touch the two wires together and you don't get any chiming, a lot of times it's due to the fact that there could be a potential short in this line where this wire runs from your front door all the way to the middle of your house to the transformer, then to the doorbell. Occasionally, something happens to this wire. A nail goes through it, it's laying on ductwork, whatever happens, and the wire becomes shorted out. So what you do is you take, when this is disconnected, you can come back to the doorbell chime and check to see that one of these plungers is not in a constant state of ringing. Watch, we'll ring it. Can you hear that noise? That bell is constantly ringing. So if this doorbell button shorted out and stayed this way, after a while, either the doorbell will burn up or our transformer will go bad. So if you have a dead short in the line, sometimes when you come to the doorbell, you can see that something's gone wrong here, or you can even see that this got burnt, that it received power for too long. Now the wires that come from the chime go to the transformer. The transformer supplies turns 110 volts. It's usually in a metal box in the ceiling of the basement. The transformer is connected to the box and hanging, because these transformers can get warm. So the purpose of this is to create a heat sink and a safe place to put this transformer where it will not be a potential fire hazard. The wiring is very simple. One wire from the transformer, this red wire, goes right up, right to the trans button, it says transformer on it, of the doorbell. So the doorbell has a consistent power supply running to it. The other leg of our transformer goes out to the doorbell button and comes back, in this case, to a yellow wire that runs up to our rear. It says front, trans, rear, sometimes just FTR. This yellow comes up to the rear, so our rear button rings once. Our front doorbell will ring twice. Now the front doorbell is the same way. It has to get power from the transformer. Electricity goes through to the doorbell button. When it's pushed, it's connected. Electricity comes through to the white wire, and that goes up to the F or front button on our doorbell. So if we think, and you'll notice that the front plunger hits both chimes. The colors that you're seeing here are just random. This is low voltage wiring. There is no code as to colors. Being a handy guy, I try to use the red wire always as my hot wire. So I use the red wire to feed the doorbell chime. I use the red wire to feed both of my buttons. And then coming out of the button is the white wire. Polarity is not an issue. When we're downstairs, there's one last thing we can do. we're wondering if this doorbell works, we can take, these wires are usually just twisted together or wire nutted together. Again, being low voltage, they don't have to be secured very properly. They can just be dangling in the air, not even a wire nut at them, as you see. When I'm in the basement, I can take and ring the doorbell by touching this wire directly to the transformer. So instead of the electricity leaving, going to my doorbell button and coming back, the red wire already goes to the doorbell. I can just take this particular wire and go transform the doorbell. So I can ring it from the basement. That gives me a chance to check to see if the transformer is good or if the doorbell is good. Then I can worry about what may have happened to my wires and their travels back and forth. There's one last thing we can do. If you come back in for a close-up, we can take, this is kind of an amateur way of doing this, but you can take a piece of metal and go across the two screws and you get a light sparking. Can you see it there? So that sparking, that's one amateur way of seeing if there's any power at a transformer. You should not do that for any length of time. Transformer is going to heat up and burn. That is not my favorite way. My favorite way is to take a meter, old $15 multimeter this is called. I'll set it down right there. And I can put it against the transformer and it's going to read about 12 volts. The meter is set at 50. So on the 50 scale on that meter, we're getting about our 12 volts. We're okay with that. So that's how you check the transformer, check the wiring, and possibly fire your doorbell from the basement.